Hi, I'm Todd Tanner, and I'm around the fire today with Steve Hempkins and Steve Ramirez. Steve Hempkins is a vice president for Orvis and a serious hunter, a serious angler, longtime sportsman. And Steve Ramirez is an author, actually just came out with a new book. And Steve is also a sportsman, a hunter, but primarily a fisherman. And we're going to be talking today about something that I think pretty much anybody who's watching this right now can empathize with. It's been a crazy year. It's been literally as nuts as any of us could ever have imagined between the pandemic and the wildness of our political season and the economic collapse that we're all participating in and dealing with. And so we're going to talk about how we get through that, and specifically how nature, how spending time outdoors, whether that's hunting or fishing or even camping or hiking, whatever it might be, gets us to a place that helps us cope with each and every single day. So, Steve Hempkins, I'm going to start with you, and I'm just going to ask: you're up in Maine right now, and how are you making out with the general insanity that we're all experiencing?
I have two little boys right now that are 3 and 5. So we're definitely in hand-to-hand combat and trying to find little moments of structure and safety. And almost all of those revolve around being outside. Now, our big backyard is been really awesome to have that be our habitat and to live in the moment with these two just really precocious and high energy, but very curious and observant little people that live in the now all the time.
A lot of us, we get in our heads and we're focused on something that's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. And maybe we could all take a lesson from our kids who do live in the moment and experience things a little bit more purely. I know one of the things I've noticed over the years is that sportsmen, anglers, and hunters, we pay a little bit more attention outside than most people do. And Steve Ramirez, I know you just got back from a trip to another state where you literally went off grid and went out hiking. Was that the kind of thing that helps you through these difficult days?
Absolutely. Um, I actually have been traveling all across the Rockies and even through the pandemic as safely as possible. But getting out off the grid, as you're saying, getting out even with friends, being careful in the way we do it, it's made a huge difference. I mean, to me, nature saves me. I think it saves us, and it teaches us lessons too. Nature teaches us that life's not fair. Get over it. It teaches us to find the joy in that moment. And I love what Steve was saying about being with his children because kids remember something we've forgotten. And I think what we do as anglers, as hunters, as hikers, whatever we do, uh, it keeps us in that moment. It gives us something to ground us. So we realize that nothing's permanent, including the craziness we've experienced.
What are the things that make it harder than usual for you right now? Is it the pandemic? Is it something else? Is it being in a new place where you are in Maine? What's
Oh, well, no, I think we have an incredible amount of access to the outdoors. Maine is awesome in terms of the coast. It's I think one of the biggest challenges having a young family right now is just managing life on a day-to-day basis. The things that you take for granted in terms of being able to take a kid or two kids into the grocery store, throw them in the cart, kind of go out the window. And so I think that the access is there for us, the will is there, but it's what's the Yiddish proverb? We plan, God laughs. So that's how I feel like our lives are right now.
Steve Ramirez? You've been fishing a bunch. Is the fishing time you've had recently, is that a little bit of a lifeline for you?
Oh, absolutely. As you were saying, all the craziness we've experienced. If we really think back, we've been through this before in different ways. And nature is actually teaching us, I think COVID's teaching us to adapt. So I've had to adapt in order to make these travels for the second book that I'm writing. But it's allowed us to pay attention to, like nature teaches us, to pay attention to the moment, pay attention to each other. So there's been a real gain. The other part is I have found that by traveling out and meeting these friends who also love nature, we have that common bond right now. So it's been a real lifeline for me. I've met the best people of my life because of my love of nature.
I can't argue with that. Steve, Hempkins, has that been your experience as well?
I've found it to be incredibly, there's really three dimensions of it for me. There's one is the therapy and the medicine that it is for me. So that a lot going on professionally over the past 8 or 9 months, as we react to the volatility and fragility and just needing to get out. And my medicine has been to go striper fishing. It's nothing flashy. The coast is close. Look at the tides, figure out when a good window is. And normally it would be kind of nocturnal or before dawn, and see the sun come up. And so to have that moment, or the relief, the knowledge that I can go, it's there. The anticipation and the curiosity and the excitement of thinking about what it might be at a particular tide level, moon phase, what the wind's doing, what the weather's doing, fishing at night versus fishing at dawn, has all of the variables that get me really excited and motivated. And then to go out and be there and to actually see what the birds are doing and what the fish is doing and what the tide is doing, and catch a couple fish, and then being able in a lot of cases to go home and be home and have had a day and had a moment of real value and generation for me and health, and have my household either still be asleep or just waking up has been really awesome. There's the social element of being able to share that experience with some other people, either using it as a currency to get to know people in a town that we haven't lived in before, but found ourselves living in because of situation, the COVID situation, and be able to, like, hey, normally you might go to a bar, get a beer, you might go to a concert, sporting event, do something like that. Like, a lot of those things are off the table. And so I've had a number of opportunities to invite people and share my love of fishing with my brother-in-law, with my father-in-law, with maybe some friends or soon to be friends. Has been really awesome. And then the last thing is just being able to share those moments with my kids and with my wife, and go out there and dig the worms in the garden, and then go to the pond and have them, trundle around and fall in the water and have it be over and have to go home and all those things. And so it's been so foundational to being able to not just thrive, or not just survive, but hopefully thrive through these ongoing periods of craziness.
One of the things I've noticed over the years is that when we live in the moment, when we're intimately engaged, whether that's with a fly rod in our hands or a spinning rod or a rifle or a shotgun or a bow, whatever it might be, when we're in the moment, all that stuff on the periphery sort of fades away. It just sort of slides away. And we have peace, and we have the ability to concentrate on something that we love to do. I mean, we're all really serious outdoorsmen. We all love to spend time in nature. And I mean, it's one of those things where, especially right now in this particular moment with the political season and with the pandemic and with the economy in such rough shape, I mean, it's one of those things that it's restorative, and it allows us to sort of recharge our batteries. And then when we have to wade back into the thick of things, we can do that with some sense of balance anyway. Steve Ramirez, are you experiencing, I know you don't have kids at home right now. Are you still able to connect to nature the way you wanted to? I know you're teaching, and that's got to help, right?
Uh, I am connecting to nature the way I want to. Again, it's about adapting. And one of the problems here in my home state of Texas is we don't have a lot of public land. It's been interesting to watch. I'd like to see that change. Uh, it's been interesting to watch people trying to get outside to the point that our state parks now have to take reservations for you to get in. And that tells you everything about how much we need more access, more public land. And I'm bringing that topic up because it's tied into getting everyone, including urban people who live in urban settings, more connected to nature. I've found that luckily I live in an area where I can drive for 30 minutes and I can be in a river by myself. I don't have to worry about social distancing unless the deer have COVID. So I have been able to get out. It's made all the world of difference. And it's also made a difference to push forward and find ways to meet with friends. As Steve said, current friends are soon to be friends. That restores us. It definitely restores us. It gives us perspective. It's kind of like seeing that flower growing out of the crack, in the rocks. It gives us that perspective. So I feel optimistic, actually.
Well, we've all made it this far, which is a really, really good thing.
Right.
I've been thinking a little bit about an Aldo Leopold quote, and the quote is basically that one of the penalties of an ecological education is that one lives alone in a world of wounds. And it seems like right now that just it seems like we just keep getting stuff heaped on top of us. It's more and more and more and more. So maybe it's people arguing over politics. Maybe it's people who can't do the things that they want to do outdoors, indoors. They can't go to a movie, or they can't go sit down in a restaurant with a bunch of friends, or go to a bar and have a beer with their buddies. And so that leaves us all just a little bit more unmoored than usual. Steve Hempkins, I'm sort of curious, how is Orvis handling all this stuff? How is Orvis trying to get through probably the toughest time, or one of the toughest times the company's ever had?
Well, it's been an adventure for sure. We've been really encouraged and gratified by our customers, and by what has been happening in terms of people are saying they need to get outside. They value being outside, and that they need things from brands to either discover or learn the activities, or they need the gear. And so we've seen a tremendous amount of interest and activity around fly fishing. Our wing shooting or hunting business is having a really solid fall. Our dog business, which is another smaller part of the overall Orvis portfolio, has also been really dynamic. And so folks are looking for that connection, whether it's with their four-legged friend who's become a coworker all of a sudden, or they went and adopted a dog through the pandemic, or they're finding time and the motivation and kind of the whole framework to either pick up that fishing rod again and go out and fish, or they've always wanted to but haven't had the time. And so we've been really encouraged by the movement back outside and connection to some of these things that are really intrinsic to Orvis, and just trying to manage through it as responsibly and thoughtfully and nimbly as we can.
So Steve Ramirez, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You're doing something pretty crazy, right? You're writing a book in the middle of a pandemic, through an insane political season, through a difficult economy. What's different than maybe you thought going into the whole process?
So the first one, the one that came out just yesterday, is about human resilience through hardship. This one was supposed to be focused more on our native species, our watersheds, conservation, and our interaction with that. In the middle of writing this book, I was on Pyramid Lake when I found out that my daughter had COVID in England. I I remember being at Pyramid Lake and watching what we call a strike indicator in fly fishing, but we all know it's a little bobber, and thinking about how my dad took me fishing. And I loved what I was hearing with Steve with his children. And it has caused the story to change, because now it's a story not just about nature and our impact on it, but its impact on us. So I think that's what I also would share with this crazy political season, as we would call it, with the pandemic, with all the challenges we have right now. The story is where we're at with it and how that unfolds and how do we adapt to it. That's what I've learned. It has made it harder, and I had to ask myself, can I still do this? And the answer is yes, but I have to change the way I do it. It wasn't as easy as I had planned.
When I think of activism, which is something that we're all engaged in to some level, and particularly activism on really serious issues, climate change being probably the biggest one out there right now. How has this year, in all the changes that you and your family, that the larger Orvis family, that everybody's going through, how has that impacted your activism?
You know, in some ways it's tough to think about the big picture and to stop what you're doing when on a day-to-day basis you're just trying to get through to the next thing. On the other hand, you know, probably have to go back 3 or 4 generations of people homesteading to find a time in American history where people, especially dads, were spending this much time with their kids on a day in, day out basis. And it's really a blessing to be able to see them every day as much as I do, and honestly adds to the gravity and the sense of responsibility around where we're at in terms of some of the choices that we have in front of us, whether it's conservation, it's around climate change, it's around public lands, it's about biodiversity, it's about ecosystem integrity. The list just goes on and on, because I'm just with them all the time. I'm seeing them, I'm thinking about the things that I'm teaching them, that their own habitat that my wife and I are creating every day, what choices we can make as parents to model good behaviors in them in terms of trying to think sustainably, to think about the bigger picture. We'll see.
And Steve Ramirez, where do you see us going from here? Where do you see specifically sportsmen, specifically hunters and anglers? What kind of impact is a year like this, something that, as we all know, is completely unprecedented, something that we didn't see coming, it just sort of came out of the blue. How is this going to impact us going forward? And what is it going to do to nature? Will people become more involved, more engaged? Will more folks want to spend time out fishing? Will more folks want to hunt? Will they want to hike? Will they want to camp? Or is this sort of spurt of nature time that a lot of us have seen over the last few months? Is this just the one point in time, and when this is behind us, we're going to go back to the way things used to be?
What I've seen as I've been traveling is both good and not as great, we'll put it that way. So people are getting out into nature, but they're not respecting it. And national forests and parks are being trashed at access points. And so I've seen that part. I've also seen the really great part where people are seeing it for the first time, and because of what's been happening, and it's making that connection. So here's my vision of it for sports. We'll say sportsmen, but I'm going to say outdoors people who are anglers, who are hunters, who are hikers, who are paddlers, whatever it be. What I'd like to see is for us to learn from this and choose to adapt and change. So here's what I mean. I want people that would say, I'm an ecologist, I'm an environmentalist, to also realize that people who are hunters, anglers, hikers, paddlers, climbers, that we are also environmentalists. And I want us hunters and hikers and campers and and anglers to to think I'm an environmentalist first. I am an activist. I care about this place that I love. So I guess one thing that has disappointed me is COVID has given us a chance to learn something here, and I don't see that we're really learning it. And I hope we can turn that around. We saw the environment get better. We saw that we can work from home. We can stagger things. We saw that we can treat each other differently. And I am still hopeful that forums like this and others will help change the way we see ourselves and our interaction with nature. I want it to last. I think it can. And I want to see groups come together. People would say, I'm an environmentalist. People would say, I'm a hunter. I'm an angler. We're all in the same boat. And that's my answer, is I want to see that change. I don't know what will happen, but that's what I want to see.
Steve Hempkins, what about you? Are you sort of in the same place, or are you coming at things from a little bit different angle?
I'm really optimistic that we are going to learn some things from this that are healthy. Obviously, at some point, professional sports and college sports and team sports and concerts and rec sport, bowling leagues, and all the other stuff that people used to do and with each other are going to start to reemerge. However, I know what it's meant for me in my life, and I can't help but imagine that folks either that had lost it because of other things that were going on in their lives, who are discovered it, who have had the chance to go fish, go camp, go paddle, go hunt, do whatever, enough for it to become sticky for them. You know, there are clinical studies, there are mountains of research that reinforce that what we're talking about isn't some like crazy hunter fisher voodoo. It's actually nature is good for us as humans, as a species, that it's going to be sticky enough for enough folks, and we can continue to not just keep people participating, but have it not be transactional, but have it be about stewardship and commitment and about leaving the campground better than we found it, not just for ourselves and the current generation of participants, but for those in the future.
Amen. I've been spending the last couple of days. I've literally been out splitting wood and stacking wood, which is one of the things that I sort of do a lot at this time of year. And I've been thinking about the fact that I'm going to dive into our local big game season here in Montana. And for me, that's almost gotten to be a situation where it's less about putting meat in the freezer or looking for a big buck than it is being out there and participating in the landscape, being part of it, being a natural part of it, in a way that human beings have been literally for as far back as we go. And it's real. It's something that a lot of folks don't find in other elements of their lives, whereas the time we spend outdoors truly is real. It's impactful, it's important, and it's personal. I guess I'd like to wrap things up just asking each of you guys, what are you looking forward to right now, whether it's over the next few weeks or the next few months or the next year or two?
I'm looking forward to continuing. It's not something I just do once. It's something that's part of who I am. I don't think, actually, I know I would not want to be alive without my interaction with nature, without being able to go fly fishing. And frankly, I would not be alive without nature and fly fishing. As you know, I've battled PTSD since my time in the Marines, and it's fly fishing and nature that saved me. No doubt about it. So I'm looking forward to the next adventures. That's what I'm looking forward to, and writing about them and sharing them and seeing what I learned from it and sharing that. I learn a lot from a walk in a canyon. We are participants. When someone who is not a hunter or an angler would say, how can you say you love wildlife when you shot a deer? And my answer is, I am a participant in the circle of life in nature. I shot that deer with respect. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Whatever comes around the corner, whatever I can create and whoever I can share it with, that's what life's all about for me.
Steve Hempkins?
I'm looking forward to taking my little guys ice fishing this winter. There's a particular kind of mind-blowing element to water in a different phase and the fish being below and the pageantry and all the gear. So they're going to love that. I'm really hopeful that this coming weekend, I'm going to be able to get my family out of town to a camp, maybe take my 5-year-old for a walk with a gun, because it's really time. He's curious. And I think it's really important to have that exposure, and obviously not to protect him too much from, as you said, the circle of life. And that, I think, is one of the things that gives me a lot of hope is you're out there paying attention, turn your ringer off on the phone. I mean, you can't help but be part of the process in a different way. And I think that's one of the things, knowing what we share as anglers and hunters, is it's not to diminish the experience of hiking or skiing or mountain biking or a lot of different ways of being outside. But if you're fishing and you're wading into a river, you're out there on the flat, or you're out there kind of pursuing something, and you're seeing how it all fits together. And I think are being blessed with a certain amount of perspective and a reverence and a sense of commitment and purpose around how special and sacred it all is, and that we all have a role to play in protecting it and making it better.
Well, my hope today is that folks who don't fish or don't hunt, and who might not really have ever spent any time with people who hunt or who fish, will come away maybe with a little bit different perspective, and look at sportsmen, sportswomen, from sort of a new angle, and say, you know what, some of these folks out there really do care about the environment. They care about conservation. They care about big issues like climate change and public lands, and then some of the smaller stuff too, some of the local stuff. I think we have to bring people together. We have to bring hunters and anglers and folks who spend time outdoors in different ways together. And I truly thank you both for coming on Around the Fire and sort of showing people what that looks like. And let's wrap up. Steve Ramirez, do you have a copy of your book handy so that people can, if they're interested, they can take a look and see what your new book is?
Todd, I just happen to have one here. So, and I love the way the cover came out. I'm very lucky to have the illustrations by my friend Bob White, and I hope the people that do read it really get something out of it, and not only enjoy it, but are enriched by it.
I hope people take the time to check out your book, Steve. And both Steves, thank you very, very much for joining us on Around the Fire today. I truly wish you the best, both of you the best going forward in these crazy times. All right, take care.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
We are sportsmen, and we are in trouble. We've learned what happens when we underestimate a serious threat. We can't make that same mistake with climate change. We need to stand up for America and for our kids and grandkids. Tell Congress to act on climate.